Welcome to Sitcom Showdown, a podcast that reviews classic sitcom episodes and inducts them into our very own Hall of Fame. As usual, one of us has chosen a sitcom episode and the other guy has no idea what it's going to be. Will they already know it? Will they love it? Can they be convinced that it's worthy? Let's find out on the Sitcom Showdown. Hello, thank you for joining us for Sitcom Showdown. It's Jeffers here, and I'm with Steve.
Hi.
Hello, Steve. Now, what's going into the Hall of Fame this time?
I want to conduct a little experiment.
Oh, here we go.
This is how iconic I think the episode is that I've chosen.
Okay, right, yeah.
So here we go. If I told you that this sitcom episode has a rat in it...
What would someone immediately think?
Yes.
I would immediately think Basil.
Correct.
And Fawlty Towers.
That's it. That's Basil the Rat.
Oh, really?
From Fawlty Towers.
I thought you were going to zag and zig and zag there because you would set that up and then subvert that by saying it's a different episode with a rat in it.
Well, in thinking about it, there were a couple of other options.
Yeah?
Rat Funeral from News Radio.
Oh, yes.
Which would be rightly inducted into our little Hall of Fame.
Oh, brilliant.
I was also worried that Vivian, in the Young Ones, had a pet rat, but then I looked it up and no. It's actually a hamster.
SPG.
SPG. Special Patrol Group.
Yeah.
I was thinking that would actually make a pretty good sitcom name. Sitcom Patrol Group.
Special Patrol Group. We could have called the podcast Sitcom Patrol Group. Wow.
In an alternate reality.
Yeah.
That's
it doesn't trip off the tongue as well, but, you know, it's
No, it could just be SPG.
Oh,
for sure.
SPG was great. He had his own 4 stars in his own forehead. That's right. We'll see about that, Pally. Oh, he was hard as nails. Anyway, sorry, I've diverted things here. Tell us more.
The very last episode of Fawlty Towers. It's season 2, episode 6.
Wow.
An overview of Fawlty Towers for those people who don't know. Basil and Sybil Fawlty are the proprietors of Fawlty Towers, a hotel in Torquay, England. They aspire to greatness, but fail. And I'm looking back at that now thinking to myself, do they aspire to greatness or do they just think they're better than they really are? I'm not sure, but in any case, they definitely fail.
That can't be denied.
Lurching from disaster to disaster, aided and hindered by their staff and guests. I think that's fair to say, isn't it?
Totally. That's a very neat summation there.
Actually, thinking about this, I think there might be a subgenre here of sitcoms called the disaster com.
Right.
A series of escalating disasters swirl around a central character, usually culminating in a nervous breakdown and or physical catastrophe. Here are some other examples. Some others do have them.
Yes.
Chance in a Million.
Oh, yes.
The British Empire.
Ah.
And I would say that this subgenre is also characterised by being very difficult for some people to watch.
Oh, yes. Very much so.
Stressful.
Yeah, I'm totally loving this. And all those names of those sitcoms you just mentioned, and yeah, they are stressful. And for that very reason, I don't watch Fawlty Towers because it's so stressful.
Really?
But you realize, and
I didn't realise that.
You've just interested me so much with this disaster com thing and what you've reeled off there. I could think about that for hours, but no time. But I mean, I'm happy to sit down and watch this for sure. It's just that
coax you into it.
It'll be interspersed with tons of episodes of me going, no,
don't, no. Ah! At least I'll be able to get you to watch it.
Oh, good.
Well, this was on the BBC in the United Kingdom. There are only 2 seasons, like I said before, of Fawlty Towers of 6 episodes each. Interestingly, the first series was in 1975, and then they had a 4-year break.
Really?
The second one was in 1979. Yeah.
I never knew that, and that's a bit inexplicable. What is their background on why?
Well, John Cleese and Connie Booth were actually married during production of the first season, and then by the time the second series came around, they were divorced. I don't know if that had something to do with it or not. I don't know the reason off the top of my head. But you wouldn't, looking at the 2 seasons, you would never know that they weren't produced 12 months apart.
You're totally right. You just wouldn't.
Yeah, the way it's produced and everything, the characters don't look any older or anything like that. So there you go. Who's it got in it? Basil Fawlty, the inept owner of Fawlty Towers. He's played by John Cleese. probably best known, well, to this point, for being in Monty Python. Did you ever watch much Monty Python?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah, it's. I think everyone gets to a certain stage in high school, or certainly for me it was high school or university, where someone will show you Monty Python, and then you'll see all those things for the first time, and then you'll crack up.
We're not talking about the movies. We're talking about the
the shows, and often it'll be sketches. And actually, that's without wanting to go on a tangent here, but it'd be much easier now because kids can just hop on YouTube and see all the great sketches one by one. But back in the day, you would have needed someone to whip out a videotape of actual Monty Python rather than a movie. But now you've got me thinking about it. It was the movies first, then obviously going back and watching. Yeah.
He also went on to, following Fawlty Towers, to do a movie called Fish Called Wonder, which I think was huge.
Massive,
by my recollection. Yep. And like I said before, he starred in Fawlty Towers and also co-wrote it with Connie Booth, who plays Polly the maid. Possibly the most normal person, I would say, out of the main cast.
You've got to have a normal person.
You've got to have at least one for all the other people to bounce off. So like I said before, Cleese and Booth were married throughout the first series, and then by the time the second one came around, they were divorced. Prunella Scales plays Sybil, Basil's feisty wife. She's efficient, but I'd say more interested than in other pursuits. I don't know what you think about that.
I reckon you'd be right. Like
hanging out with their friends, playing golf.
Yep, cards, doing her hair.
Doing her hair, all those sorts of things.
Totally.
And her and Basil don't get along very well, do they, Jeff?
No, definitely not. It makes you wonder, did they get along before embarking on this hotel business?
Who knows?
Is it the stress of running the business that does it to them, or are they just poorly matched? I don't know.
There is a quote here that might give us a bit of an insight into that. We'll come back to that. Andrew Sachs is Manuel, the Spanish waiter who means well, doesn't speak English particularly well. He drives Basil completely bonkers and sometimes gets beaten up. Andrew Sachs was the hotel manager in the 1977 Are You Being Served movie.
That is a
I don't know
mind
if you've
blower.
seen that or not.
No.
There you go. And he passed away late last year. Don't know if you remember that. He was one of the 2016 celebrities that died off.
Oh, I see.
There were many of them. And I'd say for Connie Booth, Prunella Scales and Andrew Sachs, Fawlty Towers was probably the biggest thing they ever did. Most popular thing they ever did.
I'd say you're about right.
I had to read through all of their work and it seemed that way to me.
Well, certainly. Well, with Prunella Scales, and I only know this recently because I'd been rewatching The Good Life, and I was reading about Richard Bryars, and he and Prunella Scales were in a sitcom in the 60s that ran for about 4 seasons.
What was that called?
I don't know. I can't remember. But I've certainly never seen any of it. But it must have been alright if it ran for 4 seasons.
Yeah. Wonder if that was black and white.
It was, so I believe.
I watched this as a kid a fair bit, and it's been one of those shows that always seems to have been on repeat because it's been so popular. And a couple of years ago, something like that, went and bought the whole set on DVD for cheap on eBay. And
Nice.
yeah, the kids really enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Have they watched the whole lot?
Yeah, the older ones have watched the whole lot. What about you, Jeff?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, as we've said before, we were raised on the ABC, and it must have been repeated on the ABC umpteen times.
Yep.
So, yeah, we were exposed to a lot of Fawlty Towers as kids. And it's classic stuff. I haven't got a bad word to say about it. It's just that, watching it can often not be as enjoyable as you'd think because of the stress.
All right. Well, we're going to go away now and get Jeff stressed by watching Fawlty Towers. We'll be back soon.
Public health inspector, coming. After a 24-hour warning and a rat loose in the hotel, is that what you mean?
He must have escaped, Mr. Fawlty, and come back.
Come back.
They home.
Oh, I see. He's a homing rat, is he?
Oh, yeah, rats are amazing creatures, Mr. Fawlty. I read about one once. His owner had gone down to Penzance.
Yes, I read about that when the chef got filleted with his own carving knife.
No, honest. Scouts on it.
We'll find him, Mr. Fawlty.
Well, if you could, that would be lovely before they close us down. Super. Well, let's have a little Basil hunt, shall we? And then we'll deal with the sackings later on.
I'll do the cellar.
I'll do this floor. Manuel, you check your room.
Not in the bar, Polly.
And we're back. So let me tell you about the episode that Jeff just suffered through.
Oh.
The Fawltys arrive home to find the health inspector in their hotel kitchen completing a scathing assessment. He gives them 24 hours to comply with a long list of items, and he finishes his assessment by saying, "The only gourmets you'll find scavenging in this kitchen are kamikaze ones." Terry the chef, he's completely nonplussed though. He says, "Right, this is no problem," and they all set to work. Basil goes upstairs to get Manuel down so he can help them out. Whatever help he might be. And he finds Manuel in his room playing the guitar. And he notices the pet which Manuel has got, which Manuel says is a filigree Siberian hamster. But it bears a remarkable resemblance to a rat. Basil the Rat has to go, which causes some upset for Manuel. He's been here for a year and he hasn't hurt anybody. Fortunately, Polly manages to resolve the situation by taking Basil, because Manuel's called the rat, Basil.
Basil the Rat?
Yep, they take Basil to a friend of hers who's going to look after him. But really, they hide him in the shed out the back of the hotel, which we don't know about.
Oh.
The next day comes and they're putting the finishing touches to the clean-up, and they're checking off the list and going through all that sort of thing. Basil the Rat makes an appearance shortly before the health inspector arrives in the bar. Basil Fawlty decides to solve the problem of Basil the Rat by covering a piece of veal in rat poison and leaves it on the kitchen floor. Despite a firearm going off during the middle of all this, the inspection actually... the inspection goes well. However, a tray of veal is spilt on the floor and the poisoned piece is mixed up with the others. Then, of course, the inspector decides to stay for lunch and orders veal. The staff enter into a manic process of elimination, which finally sees the inspector served his lunch just before Basil the Rat makes a final appearance in the biscuit tin. The inspector loses his mind and Basil passes out. As Manuel drags Basil out of the room, Sybil says, she's so, like you were saying, so cool under pressure, she says, "I'm afraid it started to rain again." So, why do I think it's worthy of entry into the Sitcom Showdown Hall of Fame? Well, lots of reasons. It does different types of comedy all really well. There's the brilliant situation of having a health inspector who's got the power to shut down the hotel, putting the order in, giving them 24 hours to fix it up or get shut down, and then a rat comes into the equation.
Well, what's remarkable is that they actually managed to attend to all the items on the checklist and bring the kitchen up to standard, which in Fawlty Towers terms is miraculous.
Yep.
I mean, it's not a big part of the plot, but it's still miraculous.
It is. And like we were talking about before, this episode just builds in tension. You've got the problem of the inspector's list, which they're solving through the hard work. They've solved that problem. And then the problem of the rat comes about, and then they solve that problem by getting rid of it to Polly's friend. And then the problem of the rat reappearing is solved by putting the rat poison down, but then the inspector orders the veal, which has been mixed up with the poison veal. And there's this brilliant scene where that's finally solved and put to bed. The inspector's served his veal. We know it's not the poison piece. But then Basil walks outside, takes a deep breath and puts his hand on his heart, and then he sees the cat vomiting, and he just barrels straight through the kitchen into the dining room, and we're off again.
Yeah, because of course the veal problem isn't solved because the cat nibbled on the veal. And so that piece must be the poisoned piece. And then there's several more mix-ups. I mean, it's so...
There's more iterations of the same thing that just goes on and on.
Yeah.
But there are some subtle bits as well, like the bit where Basil has got the rat in the little cage. and he comes into the kitchen and he's talking to Sybil, and she's cleaning up to try and get this place ship-shape, and they've been told what a rotten job they've been doing of keeping it clean and safe and everything like that. And he puts what does he do while he's having this conversation with her? Puts the rat down
Right on a clean surface.
The preparation bench. Oh. And then, she tells him to move it so she can continue cleaning, and he takes it over and puts it on a different one. Oh. It's just crazy. And another nice subtle bit is where the Manuel puts the rat into the biscuit tin and turns away, and you see the Major in the background take the tin. He opens it up and takes a biscuit out, and he's obviously like, this is a rat in the tin, and he doesn't even notice. He just takes a biscuit, puts the lid back on, plops it down.
He's an absent-minded dude at the best of times, the Major.
Yeah, he's all over the place. The physical comedy, which particularly Andrew Sachs and John Cleese are just brilliant at.
Oh, yeah.
Watching them do their thing. Some of it is physical violence, like I said before.
Yeah.
I don't know if would be tolerated these days or not.
No.
But they're all police shaking Manuel, and then Basil grabs her by the wrist, and they're all doing it to each other.
Oh, totally.
It's all over the place. The other physical comedy I really like is where Basil's saying, we can't give this is his excuse to take another plate of veal off the inspector. It's too cold, and he's like...
jiggling the
pot. Just about spills out of his hands.
It is brilliant.
When he goes...
because Basil, obviously, he's a massively tall guy, John Cleese, and he's zipping around, desperately trying to search at ground level for this rat, which involves one of his super silly walk crouches at high speed. How he does this, I don't know, but it's just, you look at it and you can't help but laugh. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so he's doing that, and then what about when he does the little dance? About, the cat's all right. And then he breaks.
Right.
It's tremendous.
Yep. There's word humour as well. Of course, we shouldn't pass by the anagram of Fawlty Towers.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right at the start of the episode. That's a classic one. You said, was that the most memorable one?
Well, this is the thing. If you'd put the question to me and said, how many of the introductory anagrams of Fawlty Towers at the beginning on the sign can you remember from the series? That would be the only one I remember.
The only one.
Yeah.
There you go. And
that it's in the final episode, that's amazing.
Half the gags around in the episode are built around word humour. You've got... It's funny that, of course, you've got Basil Fawlty. Manuel, for some bizarre reasons, decides to name his rat, presumably after Basil.
Yep.
Basil Fawlty. And then... you've got this exchange where Polly says that the chef has put Basil in the ratatouille to try and get them out of this awkward situation, and then that just spirals out of control as well.
So they're desperately trying to conjure up these explanations and warnings without giving the game away. They're talking about 3 types of Basil, and it's...
Yeah, but Manuel, all this subtlety...
totally lost on him.
Completely, lost on Manuel. And then... other word humour is where, of course, the language thing that's always funny in Fawlty Towers.
Just trying to get anything through to Manuel when you're in an ultra hurry and in a crisis, and then trying to get things across to him.
Yep. Well, I was thinking of the one where Sybil says to Basil, maybe we should just get him put to SLEEP. And Basil comes back with a quick, maybe we could get both of them done for cheap. And then Manuel goes, Spleep. He's trying to spell it out. But all the gags are solid. One of my favourite ones, which we talked earlier about what their relationship might have been like before they got married, and Basil decides that he's going to have to give Manuel a pep talk to get him out of this depression, or supposed depression, because he's putting on a bit of an act. And he says, Manuel, my wife informs me that you're depressed. Let me tell you something, depression is a very bad thing. It's like a virus. If you don't stamp on it, it spreads throughout the mind, and then one day you wake up in the morning and you can't face life anymore. And Sybil turns around and says, and then you open a hotel. Kind of suggests that life wasn't too rosy before they opened the hotel, and it's probably not done any favours.
And then at the very beginning, when they're having an ultra minor row, about doing the accounts and such, and then Sybil says, well, I don't know how we got together. My mother says it was black magic. And then Basil goes, well, she'd know, her and her cat.
Her and that cat.
It's just, it really is a game of two halves, this episode, because the first half is all scripting genius and just, the dialogue and the interplay and all the jokes and the setups. It's all genius. And then the second half just gradually explodes into this slapstick running about craziness and props and all that sort of thing. It's a masterclass.
It is.
But I won't get ahead of what we were on about. Where are we?
I was just going to say that the characters and the cast are spot on. Even the minor characters are, well, they're always funny, but in this episode you've got the Major going off to get his shotgun and letting it off in the hotel at this rat. There's the scene where Basil's got the rat and he's carrying it out in the cage and Manuel's holding onto his leg and saying, please, don't take my rat and all this sort of stuff. And the old ladies come around the corner and they're going, oh, Mr. Fawlty, you shouldn't be doing this or whatever. And then he just holds the rat out
and they
in
realise
front of them and they go, oh, they're so funny. I think, in summary, there's just a perfectionism about the way they did Fawlty Towers.
Definitely.
The writing, I read an article, I don't know if it's accurate or not, but it said that they basically worked on the outline of each script for 2 weeks before they started writing the dialogue. And it wouldn't surprise me. I can't think of a bad episode of Fawlty Towers.
No,
I'd
agree.
We're going to talk about lots of different episodes of sitcoms, but wouldn't be many sitcoms that you could look at and say, there's no duds.
True. It's hailed as being brilliant. It's got an extremely good reputation. It'd be hard to find many sitcoms with a better reputation. For good reason.
Yeah. So you agree with my proposal to induct this into the Hall of Fame?
I totally do.
Oh, okay.
Well, there's probably some more theorising to be done on what you were saying earlier about disaster-com.
Or maybe we can unpack that with some other episodes.
Well,
other sitcoms that we talked about.
I think so. And I had been thinking recently about Chance in a Million, which is a sitcom you never hear about anymore, ever. People will still talk about the British Empire, and if you mention it, they'll know what the British Empire is. But you just don't hear anything about Chance in a Million. And I've read some things a long time ago, because you don't hear about it now, that they weren't very kind to it, and I just thought, okay, it's got great actors and it's scripted really well. I just thought, so I'm going to have to revisit Chance in a Million, I think, and figure out if they just don't know what they're talking about and it is really good, or if it doesn't hold up well. But that's one that if we ever get around to that, I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, I've got fond memories of it.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that's enough for this episode. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again.
Bye. Join us next time on Sitcom Showdown when we'll be putting another 5-star episode under the microscope. And in the meantime, you can contact us with feedback on Facebook, Twitter @Sitcom Showdown, or by email sitcomshowdown@gmail.com.